Alrighty, happy Tuesday morning. Here we are again, ready to do HTML. I'm sure you're all super excited, right?
Yeah.
Yes, good. Okay, last week we were working through that bubble under packet that I gave you, and we're going to continue with that in a while, but we're going to do a little bit of a review and work through a similar, smaller package that just talks about the pieces that we're going to be using, so it's going to be a bit of a review, but starting with a new file. So the handout that I just gave you guys, if you happen to lose it or anything and you want it back, in Blackboard in today's Learning Plan 6, under Learning Activities, it is right here, this number 1 HTML handout. So this is the document that we are going to work through right now together in class. And it is going to be quite a bit of a review. So that's what we're going through right now. All right. What software do we use to write code?
Notepad++.
Let's find it and launch that bad boy. So Notepad++. A couple things came up for some of you that were working on your laptops in class, and I know for my online students too. When we go to look at something, I have this run option, and launching Chrome would show it in Chrome, and that's what we were doing. If you don't have this option, you can always choose the File menu, and then if you have a file actually open, which I don't right now, this Open in Default Viewer will be an option. It will be not light gray. So you can click on it, and that will launch your Notepad code in whatever your default viewer is, so in Chrome or whatever. So if you're ever working on a different computer and it doesn't have this Run drop-down that allows you to pick the browser, that's how you can do a workaround. So, everybody have a clean Notepad open, ready to go?
In like 1 minute.
Okay.
1 minute.
1 minute. So the handout that I gave you called Create HTML, about halfway down on that front page, number 1 says Open Notepad++, doesn't say that, but we're using ++. And number 2 says write the following example. So I want you to type in that code that you see there. It's basically our starting template that we had last time with the addition of 1 line, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. So type all that in, and then we'll save it the correct way after you do the typing. So we now have our file, and it's not named yet. If you look up at the top left corner in the tab, it says New 1, and way up high it says New, and a little asterisk by it, which means that it hasn't been saved yet. So we're going to always use the .html extension or .htm. It's actually the same. And we're only going to use alphabet, numbers, hyphens, and underscores. We're not going to put space names in our file names ever. That becomes really problematic. So, character encoding, which we actually haven't discussed yet, but when you notice, when you type this in the head tags, this whole line right here is something new that we haven't done yet. Character set equals UTF-8. This is a certain kind of encoding that we use in North America, so the file has to have that information inserted in it so that it knows how to read it. So when we do a file, and then we're going to do a save as. For the sake of just practicing on this, let's just save it to our desktop. This is a one and done file, so go ahead and save it to your desktop. And we are going to name this index.html. Whoops, go here. So index.html. And then I'm going to make sure I pick the HTML option here. If this was still saying text, it's still going to screw it up, so we don't want that. All right, and then we're going to say save. It already exists. Whoops. If you have the same problem, because evidently this is where my bubble under is on, I'm just going to put practice index for my name. And now that we did that, notice we have the color coding working. Everything lights up. So, if you type this in correctly, the very first thing at the top of the page is actually just a comment that is not read by the computer at all, or the code reader. It's only read by humans. Whenever we start something with an exclamation point, it's just a comment. So you could write in there, hey gang, this is our opening web page, please don't change anything. And the code would not read that, it would not show up, but as a human, when you open the file, it's inside this comment section and you know you can read that. Moving down, you see if you click on the HTML opening tag, which also has one other bit of information, and that is what language this is in. Language is English. But the opening HTML tag is here. The closing tag should light up at the bottom. Next you have the head section, and the closing head should close as well. Remember, everything in this head section is not ever seen by your end user. This is not stuff that shows up on your web page. This is stuff that search engines use. They look for keywords, they look for titles, they look for descriptions, they look for things that search engines would need. So inside your head tags, we have two things. The first one is a meta tag that tells it what character set we're using of that UTF-8. So that's just standard. From now on, that's going to be a standard line in your code in your head tag. It'll just always be there. The next thing down is the title, and that would be, if I were to do a Google search on this page and it showed up first in the search results, this is the title that would be printed on the Google search results page. Sample title goes here. Whatever you have here, that's what we'll see. And then we move down to the body section. That's the actual part that people see. That's what shows up on a web page. And right now there's only one thing in it. Do you guys remember what the P tag stood for?
Paragraph.
Paragraph, yeah. So there's just one paragraph that says the words hello. Our body tag ends, our closing HTML ends. So if we want to view this in our browser, we would do a run and then launch in Chrome, and that's all we see. Notice we don't see the title. It's not there, but where does it show up? Do you guys see it on this window that I popped up? Sample title goes, here's my code. Look what shows up here in the top tab. That's the title of the page. That's where it shows up. You guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. So if LTC's website, their title is Lakeshore Technical College, go here, get hired. If that's what they wrote right here when you went to view it in the browser, that's what would literally show up right here. That's the title of the page. And then the only thing we do see on the page is the word hello, written in whatever the default paragraph style is for Google Chrome, because that's my default browser. If you are using a downloaded version of Notepad on your laptops or at home, if this option, like I was saying, isn't here to run it in the different browsers, what you can do is say File and then Open in Default View. In Default Viewer, same thing. That'll pop this open. And then from then on, if you have space, or if you have two screens at home, you can keep this open, and every time you save it over here in Notepad, you have to come back over here and refresh it to see any changes that you've made. So we can change a ton of code here in our HTML file, but if we fail to save it, it's not going to show up. And if we do save it, but we go over here and look on our browser and it's not changed, it's because we just haven't hit refresh. We haven't told it to go get the latest and greatest news. Make sense? Everybody good?
I think mine's a little,
Pardon?
I don't know, mine's being really weird.
Okay, going back to this handout, it basically just walks through everything from the top down, and we already did that. So the doc type at the top is, announcing to humans what kind of a document this is. And then we have our head and our body tags. Title, let's go back to that, and whatever you typed in here, sample title or whatever, let's type in, it says in the book W3C Cafe, but that just bugs me, so let's just call it Wildflower Cafe. Remember when that was here, anybody? Over by Bondi's, there used to be a cute little diner. Okay. Moving on. One crashed.
Sorry.
Alright. Save your file, and then either run it in Chrome, or if you still have Chrome open, you're going to have to refresh the page. And once I do that, notice how my tab at the top where the title is changed to say Wildflower Cafe or W3C Cafe, whatever you happen to type in. All right. The next thing down in our head section. So far we have the character set, and we're going to add some other things. Anything that you add that search engines use is often called metadata. So we're going to start after the character set line, hit enter and come down a line. And we're going to start with another meta tag. So type in meta. And then we're going to say meta name equals, and then in quotes, description, end quote. And then content equals, and then in quotes, you're going to write a human readable sentence. So, the Wildflower Cafe used to be just south of Bondi's. We offered great food, but we are gone, period, end quote. And then when you're done with that, put your closing caret. So this meta tag closes right here. It's a single standalone tag. Remember I told you there are a few of those that we don't need to close it with a backslash tag? And then everything inside of here is just what version of meta is it. This is the description. The name of it is description. And what is the content of the description? It's this sentence. So now if we were to go into a search engine and this were listed and we would search for great food south of Bondi's, and it matched some of those words and it came up first on our Google search engine page, this would be the sentence that we would read under the words Wildflower Cafe. So if you guys go into Google Chrome and go to Google search and type in, I don't know, food near Cleveland, or yeah, Cleveland, Wisconsin, better be clear, we'll end up in Ohio. Here is the information. So Rups on Washington, that is the title that they've chosen. The description that they wrote, where we just wrote this whole sentence, the content of the description is this. Rups, located in the village of Cleveland, is a short 15, yada yada. That's literally what they put right inside this zone right here where they explain the content. That's how that shows up. It doesn't show up on the web page when people go to it. It's just what the search engine robots look for. Does that make sense to you guys? Good. Okay. Keywords. Keywords used to be super, super important, and search engine algorithms are always getting smarter and smarter. In the early days of the web, you could actually drive traffic to your website by putting in kind of misleading keywords or fake keywords. So if you were Rups, the food place right over here, and right across the street was an awesome place to eat called Wally's that everybody knew about, in your search thing, you could also put in Wally's Steakhouse. And when people search for that, they would be directed to your page too because it was a keyword. Well, people were totally misusing this, right? They were putting in words of their competitors. They were putting in random words. Believe it or not, the word sex and porn were almost always buried in keywords to drive people, not to business sites, but to drive people to your site, because if that term was searched, they'd want to get there. So all these algorithms kept changing and changing and changing, and now keywords are important, but they're nothing like they used to be. And the content of your website, what it really truly talks about, is what drives people to your site. So all the fake keywords in here isn't going to make a hill of beans difference. So let's just add some real keywords. So we start again with an opening caret and then meta. And this meta tag is going to be name equals keywords, and put keywords in quotation marks. So what is it? It's keywords. And then what are those keywords? We have to do content equals, and then in quotes, what are the keywords? And you can see they did a whole bunch of code because this W3C Cafe in the book is using is an actual like coding website. So why don't we do keywords for the Wildflower Cafe? So obviously if people search for Wildflower Cafe, you'd want that to be a keyword. And you put a comma separating them. Maybe diner, maybe food, Cleveland. What other words might they search for? Breakfast. Restaurant. Yep.
Okay.
Restaurant, lunch. Sheboygan. I don't know. Where's a place to have lunch near Cleveland or Sheboygan? Those keywords come up. So when you're done with all of your keywords, end with a quotation mark to end them, and then end with the closing caret at the end of that meta to close out that meta tag. So now when people start doing searches for those things on the internet, those keywords are going to help drive it to your page. All right. So let's flip the page in our handout, and it says at the top, the document metadata introduced here is not all-inclusive. There's tons of other meta tags that we could use. Those are just the two big ones. The title, the description, and the keywords. The order they come in is not critical. I guess title I always think of coming first, so if I want to rearrange it, I can, but your code is going to read all of this. So if I put the title, the first thing in the head, that's fine too. So we start with the title, then we have the character set, we have the description, and the keywords. And that is all contained within the head, which only search engines see, not humans.
It's all in your head.
It's all in your head. It doesn't even exist. All right, let's see. Let's go down into the body of our document. That's the stuff that we do see. And so far we have a paragraph that says hello. I'm just going to enter down so that pushes up higher on my screen. We're going to jump down to the topic of headings, and I think we've played around with this, but let's do it one more time just as a refresher. So opening caret H1, closing caret, or greater than, less than signs, and say this is a heading 1, and then we have to end it with a backslash H1. These tags have to have opening and closing tags. And to close a tag, you just use the backslash. Let's make a heading 2. This is a heading 2. Close that one out, and then just for fun, let's make a heading 6 to see the difference. H6. After you've done those 3 lines of code, save your code in Notepad. Click on the icon or Command Save, or Control Save, sorry, we're on PCs. And then let's either run it in Chrome or go back to your browser window that's open and hit refresh. So now we see an example of a paragraph, a heading 1, a heading 2, and a heading 6. The default behavior for Chrome is to make headings bold, and a heading 1, the biggest one, is this actual physical font size, or point size. And then they get smaller and smaller. Heading 6 is quite tiny, to be honest. Everybody get that to look right in your browser? Okay, paragraphs. We've already got one in there, and we know how they work. So let's jump down to the next thing on that page, which is line. If you want to put a horizontal rule, a line across your document, it is a single tag, which is called an empty element. We don't need to close it out, and it's very simple. All we do is type in the opening caret and then HR. Horizontal rule. We don't need to close it. That's it. Hit save, and go back and refresh in Chrome, and you now should have a line going across, a horizontal rule. It's a standalone tag. Things working in the back? Yeah.
When I run it, it just gives the code. It doesn't show it like that.
Okay, whenever it shows the code, when you run it, you have some typo in your code. So go back and start clicking on the tags and making sure that they highlight in purple and that they close out. And that you don't have something spelled wrong. Like maybe you forgot an ending quotation mark in your meta tags or something. Those are things to look for. So HR, like we just said, horizontal rule will give you a horizontal rule. It's going to stretch the width of your viewport. So if I make my viewport wider, that horizontal rule goes all the way across. If I make my viewport smaller, it only goes the width of the viewport. Okay. All right, back in the code, let's turn our page in our handout. We're now going to talk about list items. And this is pretty fun. An unordered list, let's think of it the other way first. An ordered list would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, D, E. Unordered lists are just bullet points. There's no first, second, third assigned anything. So an unordered list at the top of the page is used, the code that you use to make one of those is UL, unordered list. So I want you to start by typing UL as your opening unordered list, and then hit return twice and close that out so you do not forget. So everything inside of these tags is going to be bulleted items, but we can't just type them in straight. We need to also wrap them in tags. So inside of our unordered list, we're going to, everything that we want to have a bullet point with it has to be tagged with list item, LI. So we'll do caret, LI, closing caret, and say this is the first bullet point. And then we have to close \li that bulleted point. Hit return and do another list item, LI. This is the second bullet point. Close that also, \li. List items are wrapped in LI tags. And make one more just for fun. This is the third bullet. End LI. Because these three list items are wrapped in tags telling it to be an unordered list, UL, when we save and view this, we should have a bulleted list. The default bullet, if we don't tell it what to look like, is whatever Google Chrome defaults to. So in this case, it's the round black dot. But later on, we can tell it what to look like custom if we want to. So if you wanted all your bullet points to be stars, or to be the little hand, the pointing hand, or arrows or whatever, those are custom bullets that you can switch it to. This is the default for Chrome though. Did you all successfully get bullet points? Because it is an unordered list. Okay? Instead of typing in all this code again, I want you to click and drag highlight that whole chunk from the UL to the end UL, copy it, and then below it in our notepad, paste it in, and save, and view it again, and refresh it. So by doing that twice, we now have another chunk. Notice that it automatically puts some breathing room above and below. That's just how it handles bullet points. It's going to give it some breathing room. That's a default behavior. Let's go back to our code, and if we look at our handout, we're going to change this to be an ordered list. Instead of a UL for unordered, we're going to change it to be an OL, and we're going to change the closing tag to be an OL. The list items don't change. How we handle that is still LI, but I'm going to say this is the first, I'm going to take out the word bullet. This is the first point, this is the second point, this is the third point. So because I changed the wrapping tags around it to be ordered list, when I save and view it in Chrome, it's going to change to 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 is the default, but we can do things in code to make it be A, B, C, D lowercase, A, B, C, D uppercase, Roman numerals, a bunch of different things. But numerals are the default. So an unordered list is bullet points. An ordered list is letters or numbers. In your book, in the ordered list section, it talks about specifically how we can change it so the default is to be numbers. If we wanted this to be lowercase alphabetical letters, in our opening OL tag, after the OL before the caret, we're going to put a space, and we're going to type in type equals, and then in quotes, lower hyphen alpha, end quote. And that tells this ordered list to use lowercase alphabet. That's one of the other options I was mentioning. So if we save and run it in Chrome again, lower alpha, save, run in Chrome. Well, what the heck? Did it work for anybody? It absolutely should.
You gotta type that on the bottom one too?
Nope. When you close tags, you just close it with the simple OL. Lower hyphen ALPHA, end quote. I'm trying a different browser. Ask me later. Oh, I do love it when we hit glitches like this. Lower alpha. Huh. Well, let's take that out. Maybe code has changed in the last 2 years since I did this exercise again. I have to look at my code book. That's weird. All right, let's go with the simplistic numbered list. OL is going to give you a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, the final one, and this sure darn well better work, is a definition list. And you can think of this as literally if you were doing like a glossary with definitions. Inside of your definition list, you would want the term, and then slightly tabbed in on the line below it, you would want the definition. Or think of FAQs, frequently asked questions, when you see those pages on websites. The question is usually in bold, and then below it, indented in, is the answer. So those are definition lists. That's the next thing. And the entire list itself, this requires 3 tags to make it work. DL is the thing that tells it it's a definition list. So we're going to start with an opening DL, and then hit enter a few times and close out the DL. So that is our whole thing. Everything inside here is going to be part of this definition list. Now within it, we have 2 elements. We have the word that we're going to define, and then the definition. Or we have the question that people are asking, and then the answer. So the very first thing is going to be the first term. So DT is definition term, and let's use a term like volleyball. Let's just type in volleyball. And then close out DT. That's the term that we're going to define. Next line down, we do a code of DD. That's the definition. And we say, this is a sport where teams of 6 volley a ball around. How's that for a definition? And then \DD. That is the end of our definition. I'm going to tab these in just so visually you see that this definition list is the whole thing. We could have 15 terms, but they all have to be within the opening and closing definition list tags. Inside there you have the term. I forgot my backslash because it didn't light up. You have the term, and you have the actual definition. Save that and run it in your browser. And here it is. Now, in this case, the default on Chrome evidently is not to make the term bold, but sometimes we'll see that we can do it later with some styling. or some browsers will make that bold, but notice how it tabbed it in. So frequently asked questions. You would often have, the question would be here, and then your answer would automatically be tabbed in, so it's visually easy to follow. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep. All right. All right. The back page on this we're going to skip for now. So basically what we've covered is the head, what the search engines see. They see a title, they see a description meta, and they see keywords. And they also know how to interpret it. It's in character set UTF-8. The things that show up on the page are in the body tag. We see a paragraph of hello. We see 3 headings. We see a line. We see an unordered list, which is bullets, 3 of them. We see an ordered list, 3 of them, 1, 2, 3. And we see a definition list with 1 term and 1 definition. And that's what we get. This code over here generates this page. Was everybody able to get through that and it's clean and good and perfect? Okay, good deal. Let's just save this file as our practice file. I don't know that we'll come back to it, but save it. And we are going to